Hello, you're listening to Lists and Other Things That No One Asked For with Jesse Barbin, your weekly mini podcast about books, movies, TV, growing up, etc. Thank you for listening. I remember being 14 years old when my dad got a gleam in his eye that I had never seen before. He told me to get on my best polo shirt and my best khaki pants because we were going to City Hall. In the city where I grew up, they have a program where you can sign your 14-year-old child up for a work permit that says you allow your child, who is technically under the legal working age, to work a limited amount of hours per week for less than minimum wage. I was happy to do it because at the time my parents had taken me out of public school for skipping class, getting failing grades, and hanging out almost exclusively with potheads. Once the waiver was signed, I got hired by the city and assigned to work in the Parks Recreation Department at a baseball field near my high school, which I couldn't go to. It was a good time as far as first jobs go. I spent most of my time pulling tumbleweeds, which is very much a New Mexico thing. I also spent time picking up garbage, raking clay, and drawing chalk lines around home plate. It was actually kind of fun. It was interesting to me because almost everybody who worked there was a massive pothead, so my parents' plan had backfired a little bit. I did get a lot of sun damage on my skin because it was always hot and sunny and New Mexico is at a high elevation and I was outdoors the whole time. I've had to go to the dermatologist to get a few moles cut off of me in my time, and I think that is where this started. I was almost a little sad when I was allowed to try public school one more time and had to quit that job, but it wouldn't be my last dalliance with work. I would spend the next 20 years working and trying to figure out what I would do professionally, and it was not easy. I got a lot of bad advice in the process, and I want to highlight some of that here. The first piece of bad advice I got was, if you do something you love, you'll never work a day in your life. I think that's a weird thing to tell people, and it caused me massive confusion in my late teens, and I think it steered me wrong in college too. Here's the problem. The idea of loving your work is kind of new and also problematic. Tricking people into loving their work and letting it define who they are is the most capitalist thing ever. No one ever loved their work previously. Nobody had passions back then. They just worked to not starve or freeze in the winter. And now that we're not working to survive, we can try and find something we enjoy, but it's not necessarily guaranteed. Everything I enjoyed, playing guitar, eating pizza, watching X-Files, was not lucrative, nor did they have a college major associated with them, nor were there any jobs that you could apply for to do them, as far as I could tell. If you had asked me in my late teens and early 20s, what do you love? I would have said I love playing guitar in a punk rock band. That was honestly what I loved the most. It was what I was putting all my energy into. The depressing thing is, I wasn't that good at it, as much as I loved it, and no matter how hard I worked at it. I had some strengths, but overall, I would never have been good enough of a musician to be in a band that made money. In any band I was in, I was only holding them back. This gets to another piece of bad advice. If you work hard enough, you can achieve anything you want, which is not necessarily true. A more accurate piece of advice is you need to work hard to achieve anything worthwhile, but the idea that you can achieve anything is a bit dangerous to me. It's smart to know when to quit, when it's important to hang it up. Even if you could find something that aligns with what you love, once you start doing it 40 hours a week and taking home a paycheck for it, could you still love it in the same way? Brian Wampler, the guitar pedal guru, has said something to the effect of, when you make your hobby your job, you have to find new hobbies. If I had been able to do the things that I loved, they would have inevitably just turned into work. Another piece of bad advice is do something that makes you feel like you're contributing or making a difference. So I became a social worker because that was the field that interested me, and I felt like I was making a difference there, and most importantly, there was no math. I was making a difference every day at that job, but I was very unhappy. The difference I was making was so small, the hours I worked were so long, and I was so stressed that it wasn't worth it, and it paid peanuts. Making a difference is fine as long as you're not irreparably burning yourself out. Eventually, I quit being a social worker, and this is when I came across the idea of doing something you're good at, which is an actual good piece of advice. That was interesting to me because I knew there were at least a few things that I was good at that were marketable. One of them was Excel and keeping track of things, so I ended up going back to school and becoming an accountant. These days, I work about 40 hours a week doing accounting, and it makes me feel very happy. I wouldn't say I love it, but I like it okay. And in those 40 hours a week, I don't want to throw myself off a bridge, and that's a massive improvement from my previous job. What's more is it pays my bills, and it allows me a small amount of time to do what I actually love, playing guitar, eating pizza, and watching X-Files. In conclusion, do what you're good at, not what you love. Making a difference is for nerds, and feel free to quit if you've given it your best effort and it's still not working. Thank you for listening to lists and other things that no one asked for. If you have a suggestion for a list or an idea you'd like me to talk about, please fill out the Google form in my bio and I'll get to it. I'm available everywhere at Jesse Barbin. New episodes every Monday. Let's just start over. This is egregious.